Hello, welcome to PM Express tonight. My name is Evans Mensah, and this is our first in a series of what we call PM 101 as we build up to the NDC presidential primary in December. We are going to be speaking with the presidential hopefuls who are vying to lead the party into the 2020 elections. And of course, there are 13 candidates eyeing that particular slot. And some may say a few of the faces you see here may be front runners. Alban Babwin, you know him. He is the second Deputy Speaker of Parliament. You have here Joshua Alabi, first Vice Chancellor of the University of Professional Studies. He used to also be the chair of a SNIT board. Some say they can give this gentleman here, John Dramani Mahama, who is the former president, but also in the race to contest. Now, I want you to also observe a host of other faces who popped up, particularly this gentleman who popped up a couple of weeks back, Kojo Bonsu, former mayor of Accra, but also Kuzutano is there. We have Ricketts Hagan, the former deputy finance minister. We also have names like Eleklam Agbemeva, who some say will stand no chance against the might of former President Mahama, for example. And of course, then we have David Dogbache, Kwame Nuruddin Idrisu, all also vying for that same slot. But there's one name I didn't quite mention, and that is this man, Sylvester Mensah. Sylvester Mensah obviously is one of the many, some say 13, who have so far declared their intention to contest the Flagbearership slot. He is a former MP for that Dakota Pond. He is a former chief executive of the National Insurance Authority. Remember some points to some controversies surrounding his time at the NHIA. Something we will not shy away from here on PM Express. The fact that many point to the investigations that the BNI did under his watch, claims of malfeasance, claims that he was arrested, etc. But he was cleared later on, and his plate is clean. He points to the achievements under his tenure that he says has equipped him for the job that he's about to embark on if the delegates of the NDC decide to give him the nod. Guess what? He is our guest tonight on PM Express. When we return from the break, we will be having a conversation as we build up to the NDC presidential primary. Stay with us here on PM Express. Mr. Mensah, thank you very much for joining us on PM Express.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
How is the campaign?
Going very well. It's not over till it's over, and we're doing the best we can. The good Lord determines who He hands over His people to. Ghanaians are God-loving people. Ghanaians are God's children. And eventually the Almighty God will determine who leads His children. It is our hope and prayer that the mantle would fall on us to lead this party and country.
What have you been doing in terms of campaigning?
Yeah, we've been going around the regions and constituencies. We have had engagements with most of the elders of our party. We have engaged a cross-section of our regional delegates and executives across the country. We have met with a cross-section of constituency delegates. We have undertaken some introspection, reflection, and soul-searching, and we have embarked on a full-scale campaign. It is going so well. The motivation from the endorsements and support is quite interesting, and we're just waiting for the day of the primaries.
Where have you been, specifically across the country so far? I know you were in Upper East recently.
Yes, we're in the Upper East region. We have visited a number of regions. We have been some shallow, some clinical. We have been to at least 8 regions. We've done and let's see what the voice of the people will be at the primaries.
Are you meeting delegates or you're addressing national voters?
Well, at the moment, the audience are clear. It's a delegates conference, and so there's no need moving outside our delegates. But of course, there are individuals who may not be delegates, but who may have influence over delegates. And so programs of this nature, it's also very beneficial and useful for our purpose. But essentially in the field, the focus has been on our delegates, our regional executives, the constituency executives, branch executives, elders of the party, former appointees, former members of parliament, and very direct, very clinical.
What has been the message? What is Sylvester Mensah's message?
Well, we have a host of conversations we've been having with our people, but essentially these are all anchored by some pillars. One, we believe in uniting the party unity, and so we are guided in what we say and what we do by the need to have a united party after the primaries. Two, we are also guided by the need to assure our delegates, our party, of rewarding loyalty, which has been a source of concern, of apathy, of disenchantment, leading to losing the elections in 2016. We've also been talking about issues relating to prosperity for all, doing away with the actual family and friends type of business, trying to ensure that we have a broad-based party, and above all, giving the party back to the grassroots, giving power to the grassroots. And also I believe in our common humanity, that no one should go hungry without shelter and clothing, and importantly, deepening social democratic values within our rank and file. And most importantly, going back to our core values of probity, accountability, transparency, and social justice, and a host of others. But as to the core of our message to the people, we try to look at our past, we try to understand some of the experiences and developments that have not helped our cause, and try to have a detailed conversation with them on how to ensure that we don't go back to the tendencies that didn't serve our purpose, and how to focus on what unites us and what brings value to the generality of our party members. Beyond that, we also touch on some sensitive issues within our party, which we only discuss with such focused groups, because they would understand it better rather than putting them out in the public domain. But importantly, to let them also understand that there's a need to restore trust and confidence in leadership, which is very key in resolving challenges and problems. In the past, we have had so much trust and confidence in leadership that when challenges emerge at the constituency level, particularly relating to parliamentary selection, we are able as a party to get delegations across the country, speak to the feuding parties, and be able to get some resolution satisfying enough to guarantee some peace for victory that appeared to have been completely lost on the party in our last elections. And it's all a function of trust and confidence in leadership. We have been trying to get the understanding on how to address this in our next government. We've also tried to get our party to understand that, again, in doing so, there's a need to have a kind of a social contract with the various levels of our party, constituency, regional, and national, on matters that are very key and dear to their heart, so as to allow for some predictability in leadership, in government, so that when the NDC wins the next elections, the generality of our party would have some understanding of what is likely to happen and what will happen, so as to reduce the level of anxiety and frustrations and neglect that we have experienced within the party over the years, the cause of our being, the cause of our loss with such a huge margin. We have discussed, we discussed a host of other things, We also get them to understand essentially that when a candidate has just one term, 4 years, no matter how popular that candidate is said to be, it does not serve the interests of the collective. Importantly, for them to understand that when you have a product that you put out there on the market and the market rejects the product, you don't just repackage the product and throw it back to the market.
Why don't you?
You need to first understand a couple of things. One, why was the product rejected? You want to look at the various features and levels of a product. Is it the core product that was rejected? Is it the actual product that was rejected? Or is the augmented product that was rejected? These are all
What's your answer to that?
These are all big words in the...
What's your answer to that?
Right. So one, you want to find out whether it is the quality of the product. That's the core product. It relates to the quality. Is it that the quality of the product did not meet the satisfaction or expectation of the electorate? When you talk about the actual product, it has to do with the functionality. Was it the functionality of the product that was rejected?
Do you know the answers to these questions?
And the augmented product, is it the relational aspect of the product? And so you relate this to the political product and you determine whether you just repackage the product and resell. I believe that the product...
Clearly, you've done a lot of work.
Clearly,
in analyzing what the problem is.
Clearly, the functionality is a challenge.
Functionality
of the product. And when the functionality is challenged, you re-engineer the product, and that has to do with producing a new brand onto the market.
But that's
so the time has come really for some freshness, for some newness, for a new voice in our political conversation, for a new vision in our political conversation, for a new set of relationship in our political conversation, for a new level of trust and confidence from our general membership.
You use the word product. Are you afraid of mentioning John Dramani Mahama?
I don't discuss personalities.
But you're talking about products.
I'm talking about products. And
a product in this case is a human being.
Well, let us limit our discussions to issues and principles and do away completely with mentioning personalities.
I hear you talk about product.
Yeah.
Which product?
The political product.
And the political product?
Losing an elections is not simply an individual. It's much broader than that. And when you are looking at a political product, you want to look at one. Is it the presidential candidate as an individual?
You see the presidential candidate for you?
Let me conclude so that you could put your questions clearly. Is it the parliamentary candidates, the political appointees all constitute the product? Is it our manifesto, our platform? Is it our strategy? And a host of others. And so you want to put all these together. But essentially, the individual who leads the party carries a lot of weight, quite apart from the party as an institution.
Mr. Mensa has a name. It's called John Dramani Mahama. Why are you afraid to mention his name?
I'm not mentioning individual names.
Why? You
can infer from my discussions that I'm referring to a political product. I would want us to limit our discussions to individual. To issues and principles. It makes life much easier for you and I.
Well, in terms of clarity, though, and you've been in politics for a long time. In politics, in Ghana, clarity is absolutely important. For the kind of people we sell our message to, clarity is important.
Yeah, so let me also say that essentially when you have a candidate who has just one term, we also try to make them understand that it doesn't serve our collective interest. does essentially is that in the unlikely event that we fail to win the next elections, it places the party in a very awkward position.
That is, if this candidate is retained.
I'm saying that if a candidate has one term, and that candidate leads the party into an election, in the unlikely event that candidate loses, it places the party in a very awkward position.
Which you were in 2016.
Which the generality of our members would need to understand. They need to understand the choices, the decisions that they're going to make in 2016. And we share that with them. We also get them to understand that, look, under President Kufuor, we could even start under President Rawlings. During his second term, it was quite obvious that midway in his second term, he virtually became a lame duck president. Under President Kufuor, it was even more pronounced. Less than 2 years.
You are mentioning names.
Yes, I'm mentioning names. These are not controversial issues.
But John Mahama is a controversial issue.
I'm talking about controversial
I'm not sure you're not going to personalize. You're mentioning names.
Yeah.
But when it came to John Mahama, you said product.
I'm saying that
you said individual.
Well,
everything else other than John Dramani Mahama.
I'll come to that. Under President Kufuor, the situation was even more pronounced. Less than 2 years in his second term, his own ministers began to resign. They began to start, as it were, looking into the future for new leadership. Some began to, as it were, campaign for leadership. Eventually, he had to virtually dismantle his entire cabinet and reappoint. We all know that government business became slow, and the last 2 years was not as eventful as the first 2 years. Essentially, when you have a candidate who has one term for the NDC, you are not going to make such progress. It means that effectively you have 2 years to, as it were, deliver on your mandate. That is not enough to guarantee us a second term. And so anyone in our party who is going to vote needs to understand the implications of the decisions that one is going to make. We need to take decisions that benefit the generality of our party and that also benefits us into the future. We must not take decisions that benefit just a small group and which, as it were, has very little implications for the future of our party. We try to get all this down for them to understand so that they make the right choice. I am very confident that the mood of the party as we speak today is for change. The party believes that the time has come for freshness. The time has come for newness. The time has come for us to depart from our old ways. And what Sylvester Mensah brings to this is a bridge between the old and the new. The old referring to our core values and the old referring to our core values and the new, the youthfulness of our party. I represent that bridge. And essentially, history and destiny appears to be moving towards a particular junction. And I find myself comfortably located in that junction. Well, and I would emerge the flag bearer of the NDC.
In December, you believe. I wouldn't expect you to say otherwise when you're a politician running for a campaign. But you've raised the point that John Dramani Mahama cannot simply rebrand and be represented because that product, you have to change that entire product and present a new face. You don't believe in second chances.
Well, I believe in second chances.
So why can't he have a second chance?
We had a situation where President Akufo-Addo had a first chance, he had a second chance, and won the third chance. This particular situation is completely different. The scenario is completely different. This is a situation where you have a sitting president who won an election, became president of the Republic of Ghana, contested an election from a position of strength, in control of all resources of this country, in control of the state apparatus and everything, had, real command over the country. And so if you lose elections from a position of strength, you don't come back from a position of weakness and assume that even though you lost from a position of strength, you are better placed from a position of weakness. Indeed, the NPP as a political party is failing. But that does not mean that losing an election from a position of weakness, from a position of strength, is something that can be juxtaposed against winning from a position of weakness, as the situation is now. The generality of our party are yearning for change. The mood of our party on the ground is for change. Ghanaians generally would want to experience new anxieties, new talents, new directions, new vision, and this is what the NDC needs to offer the people of this country.
Yeah. John Dramani Mahama has rebranded. He has changed his entire team. He's going around the country with a different message. He's attacking the current government. In fact, among the lot of the 13, he's the one who constantly is giving this current government, some may say, a good run for their money, taking them on the issues. You say, yes, this is a contest with the delegates, not yet with the national voter. But he is running a campaign which puts him as a national figure, not necessarily a party figure. He's looking beyond the primary to the 2020 elections. That is somebody who already believes that the game is done. And he's looking down the road to 2020. Isn't that the strategy that works? Instead of focusing on the tiny little NDC party, which after December 2018, there's a bigger race. That
we have seen these strategies failing in several countries. We have seen how establishment candidates have failed. We have seen how the polls have favored establishment candidates who have appointed or have appointees working for them, who have virtually party institutions and bodies working for them, losing elections and having insider, outsider candidates emerging as leaders of countries. We saw that in France. We saw that even in the U.S. We saw the polls in the U.S. and we saw what the outcome was. I mean, the reality was completely different. I guess that Ghana is heading towards a similar development.
And your party?
Certainly in our party, in the NDC. I am a grassroots person and understand the language of the grassroots. I am an organizer. I understand party organization very well, and I'm on the ground, and I get the feelings and the dynamics on the ground. The NDC is not ready for an establishment candidate.
Okay. Is the playing field you're playing on level?
Well, I mean, it's a matter of relativity. You can't have a completely leveled playing field. But of course, as candidates, I mean, as if we find something untoward, something that could tilt the scale, we'll certainly raise our voice.
Is that why you and 4 other candidates met recently?
Well, we have been meeting. That was not the first meeting.
But why would you meet your fellow contenders?
You know, there's a new concept in management referred to as co-opetition, which simply means cooperating with your competitors. It gets to a point when you realize that competitors have a common vision. In this particular instance, we have aspirants who believe in change, who believe that this country must have change, and they all represent change. Why can't all candidates who represent change decide to meet and have some discussions on the change that this country requires?
What is the first priority of change? Is it a change in your party first and then the nation?
Well, it starts with our party. Every change.
So the 5 of you have a common vision, the phrase you use, and your vision is, and what brought you together first of all?
I think that what brings
is your desire to change, to bring change to your party.
What brings us together is our understanding that the mass of our people are in the mood for change. What brings us together is our love for our party, in our deep understanding that the party requires to review its modus operandi, in our common understanding that running government business must change the way it's going and the way it has gone in the past. It is our belief that governance requires some level of urgency and that there's a need to inject some level of professionalism into governance. We have some common understanding. It is these commonalities that bring us together. And it is not about coming together to, as we have read in the newspapers, to pick one candidate. No, everyone is contesting in his or her own right.
So if that's the case, why is your mama not part of that group?
He doesn't believe in change. He believes in maintaining the status quo. He
that group is changed. You want to change him. So you're coming together to change him.
Of course.
It's the first element of change you want out.
Well, you need to understand that if I believed that, or if I believe that he represents the future of our party, I wouldn't have put myself up in the
So you confirm then that you guys are meeting because you want John Mahama out?
Well, that meeting is bigger than an individual. I'm sorry.
But it's bigger than him.
It's bigger than an individual.
Element in the conversation.
That conversation there is about the NDC as a political party.
And John Mahama isn't good for the NDC.
And it is bigger than an individual.
I get it. But John Mahama isn't good for the NDC. It's about the NDC. But John Mahama isn't good for the NDC.
Well, I haven't said he's not good for the NDC. But is
it good for the NDC?
There are better alternatives for the NDC.
So that's why you're meeting.
And I represent one of the better alternatives for the NDC.
I'm struggling to wrap our head how you can cooperate with four of the other contenders.
You will not understand it because you are not part of our meeting. Besides, I'm not here to discuss with you the issues that we have discussed at that meeting. So
no problem.
If you are making that effort to get some information about what we have discussed, I'm sorry, that is not my mission.
Are you meeting to have one person? Is that also the ultimate benefit of the party, which you say is the bigger objective?
Haven't you realized that after that meeting, all candidates are out there in the field campaigning?
But you're getting closer to December. Things might change. A day is enough.
I'm sure.
24 hours is a long time.
I'm sure. If the idea was to have one person, by now all others would have backed down for that individual. I'm sorry, that has not been part of our consideration. It never crossed our mind. It never featured in any of our discussion, and I doubt whether that will be a.
You started with 2. You increased to 5. Are you going to have more of the other candidates joining you?
Oh, certainly, yes.
So more of the meetings have been scheduled.
Of course, I mean we meet as and when we need to.
Okay, interesting.
But that was essentially the 3rd or 4th meeting
that you had.
Yeah.
Okay. Sylvester Mensah is my guest here on PM 101. When we return from the break, we'll be looking at his track record. His track record, you have to point to the time when he was a member of parliament, but most importantly, when he was the head of the NHIA. We'll be scrutinizing that. What qualifies him to possibly lead the NDC and lead this country? Stay with us. You're live on PM Express here on the JoyNews channel. My name is Evans Mensah. My guest tonight is Sylvester Mensah. He is one of the aspiring individuals who seeking to lead the NDC into the 2020 elections, and is here on PM 101. Thank you for staying with us, Mr. Sylvester Mensah. Let's look back on your time at NHIA, because if you seek to lead us, we need to examine your track record. There's something that you said in May 2015 that interests me a lot as far as your tenure is concerned. It was your view then that the coverage that we enjoy under the NHIS is too generous. In fact, you said in the interview on Joy FM Super Morning Show, quote, "Because it is a social intervention scheme, there is tension between our best intentions and what we can pay for." You said Ghana has a health insurance scheme which is exceedingly generous. 95% of all disease conditions is covered. In this interview, you suggested that some of the things we cover, we should not. In the country of poor, when majority are poor and needy, why would you want to reduce what they get under the NHIS?
Well, what we need to understand is that in developing a health insurance package, just like going to the market to shop, it is the money you have in your pocket that determines what you put in your basket, and not the other way around. Unfortunately, the policy that established the health insurance scheme was not deep enough. That policy did not look critically at the resources of this country, and particularly what has been assigned to the health insurance scheme into the future as a basis for determining what is sustainable and what should be in the basket. And so what we have is a very generous benefit package that covers over 95% of disease burden in this country. The initial resources assigned, the 2.5% VAT, the 2.5% point of SNI contribution and premium payment and others. Of course, at the outset, was enough to meet our obligations. But into the future, as the scheme began to grow with less than 40% coverage, these resources were no longer adequate in meeting maturing obligations. At that material time, it became necessary for us to re-examine not only the exemption regime, but the basket, the benefit package, and to determine what we need to put in the basket and what, of course, how much money we have. And we need to determine how much money we have into the future as a basis for determining what must go into the basket. And logic just provided that there was a need for rationalization. There was a need for us to get real and understand that the time had come for us to match what we put in our basket with what we have in our pocket.
So what you're actually proposing is reducing the benefits for the poor Ghanaian under the National Health Insurance Scheme.
We have said that and said that. It is about government's willingness, the political will to provide the resources to meet the benefit package.
But shouldn't that be the focus rather than reducing the benefit for the poor man in Bunkurugu Yoyo?
And so you expect the government of President Nana Akufo-Addo and the finance minister to increase funding for the health insurance scheme. As we sit here today, the scheme is owing 2016 arrears. The scheme has 2017 arrears. The scheme has 2018 arrears. And we are going to go into 2019 with arrears. Essentially, what you are doing is you are collapsing the health sector. You are collapsing health facilities.
But your alternative doesn't leave the poor man in a better situation. You're proposing that if you become a president of Ghana one day, if you're elected by the NDC and the Ghanaians vote for you, you reduce our benefits under the NHIS. That's what you're proposing.
Well, let me don't put words in my mouth. What I'm telling you.
But you said it's generous.
Is a technical.
You said it's exceedingly generous. What we enjoy under the NHIS, exceedingly generous. The poor woman who can't afford maternal care.
Well, you don't determine what should exit the basket. That decision is not yours. That decision has to be taken by experts. You need to look at the disease patterns in this country. You need to look at what afflicts the poor a lot more. You need to find out how to ensure that the poor are taken care of. You need to look at what diseases, as it were, afflict the privileged in society who can afford. And so in determining the basket, there are several considerations. So you don't just conclude that what are you removing out of the basket. In any case, that decision is not ours. That decision is for the NPP government as we speak today.
No, but what we have done, you're vying to lead this country.
What we have done, or what we did in government, was to commission an intensive inquiry into the review, comprehensive review of the health insurance scheme. The report thereof has been submitted to the current government, and they have considered it. They have a decision to make, a decision between technical necessity and political expediency. And so that decision is theirs.
Yeah.
But what I can tell you as a technical person,
as a man who is seeking to lead this country,
as a technical person, and of course, certainly as one hoping to lead this country and vying for leadership, what I can tell you is that we need to review our management of the health insurance scheme.
True.
Government needs to provide a lot more if it is committed to the health of the people of this country. Yeah. Government needs to commit a lot more of our oil resources to the health of the people of this country. Government needs to ensure that it has enough money to meet the basket or the benefit package of the scheme. Management is not responsible for determining the basket. The basket is determined by government. Yeah. And so government that has determined the basket must fund the basket in order to ensure that the poor, the underprivileged, the marginalized, the not-haves in society have good health.
Okay, Mr. Mensah, you seem to suggest from the beliefs that you expressed about NHIA whilst you were there as a chief executive, that one of the ways to do it is to look at where you can cut.
Well, I
face
mean,
the bullets.
Let me put it this way too. When you look at the exemption regime, we have almost 69 to 70% of membership exempt from the payment of premium. No matter,
so, for example,
from the
children under 18 years,
under 18 years,
whose children, whose parents are signed on,
yeah,
are exempt.
I mean, and that constitutes over 45% of the entire membership of the scheme.
Are you going to make children under 18 pay?
Pardon me?
Are you going to make children under 18 pay the premium?
That is, I mean, it's not just a direct, I mean, solution like that.
No, but
what it means is that, look,
but when you're seeking to lead me as a citizen, you need to propose alternative solutions.
But you don't propose them to me. Just put a question to me and let me respond.
My question to you,
it's like you already have a response you want to put out there, and all you want from me is to say yes or no, and then you have a response from me. I'm sorry.
Let me quote you again.
Not the way to put it.
Let me quote you again.
Let me respond.
It's important. This is important. Let me quote you again. In that same interview, you cited some of the aspects of NHIs that you think we can deal with. You say, and that's why I mentioned children under 18. You mentioned that specifically as one of the areas because you said it's exceedingly generous.
I'm sure, but I've mentioned.
And you also said elderly persons. Exactly, elderly persons. So I'm asking you, are you going to cut these out of the exemptions and therefore that's my question, and therefore make children under 18 whose parents have signed on pay the premium, and elderly persons who are above 70 years also pay premium? Is that what you want to do?
Now, the law establishing the health insurance scheme also provides that there should be equity in the management of the scheme. And equity requires that people pay when they are capable of paying. Having a blanket exemption is not the wisest thing to do. There are children under 18 whose parents are capable of paying. You and I can pay for the premium for our wards. There's no need for you and I to be exempted. To exempt all expectant mothers or pregnant women from paying premium is also a little problematic.
Why?
It does not provide for equity. For instance, you have a woman driving in a Mercedes, I mean, a chief executive of a company, and for the simple reason that she's pregnant, she's also exempted. It does not provide equity into the scheme. There's a need to ensure that those who are capable of paying premium pay. So there must be some means testing to ensure that we sieve out those who are capable of paying, and those who are not capable of paying are covered. That is the way to go. That is the future of the scheme, and not blanket exemptions. So the president's son or daughter who is under 18 years is exempt from paying premium. It's not fair. All the ministers, 110 ministers and all the awards are exempted from payment. It's not fair. All the chief executives we have in this country have their awards exempted. It's not fair. All members of parliament have their awards exempted. It's not right. I mean, senior civil servants who are capable of paying have their awards exempted. I mean, this it's not real. It's not feasible. It is not proper. It does not provide for equity in the scheme. And so there must be some means testing as a way of determining those who can pay and to make them who can pay, and those who cannot exempt. That is the future of a useful scheme.
Mr. Mensah, you left the NHIA under a cloud of controversy. The reports emerged that you had been arrested because the BNI was investigating allegations of malfeasance under your watch. Was there real malfeasance under your watch?
I think that the media didn't do a good job, and I'm afraid you didn't do a good job either, because when someone is under investigations, you have heard a number of investigations being conducted here and there. Usually there is a smoking gun. Usually the media is able to put a thumb on it and to say that, oh, this has to do with a particular contract. Oh, this has to do with the way this particular contract was awarded, or this has to do with a certain amount of money that has been that has not been properly accounted for as reflected in an audit report. Oh, there's an audit report that details out some loose ends that have to. In the case of the NHIA investigations, it was an exploratory type of investigation.
Well, we had reports that it was because of false claims.
Because of false claims.
Unpaid.
that remain.
That had been made and paid.
Well, there was no evidence to that effect. I never heard of that. In any case, it never reflected. No one wrote anything to me. I never received any letter to that effect. There was no communication to say that this and this is what was being investigated. There was nothing of the sort. It was more of an exploratory investigations, perhaps to find out whether indeed the call for more money was justified.
But why would you be arrested because of that?
I was never arrested. That was also false information. I was never arrested.
You were never interdicted?
I was never interdicted.
You were still in office while this was happening?
I was still in office. There was no interdiction. I was never arrested. I was never detained. And
BNI officials came to your house?
Yes, BNI officials came to my house.
And the circumstances that you did not like, I remember very clearly.
Yes, I was not at home. And BNI officials came to the house.
But why would they treat you like that? You're not a common thief.
Indications are that they were not even, nobody asked them to come to my house. And the whole thing is shrouded in I mean, it's mysterious. It's so difficult to understand.
You still don't understand it today?
Today, I still don't understand.
John Mahama, you served him. You haven't asked him what happened.
Well, I don't think he knows what happened himself.
John Mahama didn't know?
No, he didn't know. He didn't know what happened. He didn't know that people had come to my house. He didn't know.
He told you this, or you believe, you're just assuming?
Well, he mentioned that he didn't know about it.
And you believe him?
And the national security apparatus also claimed they didn't know about that. And so I take it that they didn't know.
And you believe him?
Well, that is what I've heard. I mean, whether I believe or not is very personal to me. But what I can say is that in any case, when you're in public office and you are managing the taxpayers' money, you must be ready to account for your stewardship. So it is not improper. It is legitimate for government to, as it were, investigate its employees to find out whether government or the taxpayers' money is being put to the right use and whether the people of this country are having value for money.
So you have no qualms the way you were treated under that circumstances?
I don't think so. One, I was not arrested. Two, I was not detained. Perhaps the worst I experienced was to be interrogated, which I think is fair and normal. And I cooperated fully with the investigations. I was as curious as those investigating to understand exactly what might have gone wrong under my stewardship. And I'm glad and happy to say that at the end of the day...
And nobody sent them. This is very strange.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody owned
the
fact that these people were sent.
No, nobody.
President says it doesn't know.
Yeah.
National security say they don't know. The BNI, they have leaders. They didn't know too.
They didn't know about that.
And you didn't probe further. You just let it go.
I had no reason to.
And people will keep on citing this. You know, when you're seeking to lead people dig your past.
Exactly.
Everywhere in the world.
Exactly.
And people keep on digging this up on you.
Yeah, but you see,
and you haven't sought clarity on this.
Well, I mean, I have tried to explain this over and over again. But you see, I also believe that, as I said earlier, when you're in public office, you have accepted to be, as it were, scrutinized over your stewardship, and particularly over the management of the taxpayers' money. And what should be gratifying to any public officer is to go through that scrutiny and emerge unscratched. I'm happy to say that, yes, I went through that which may be a little unpleasant, particularly with the public misconceptions and a few others. But at the end of the day, I'm happy and proud to say that, yes, it ended. Yes, no malfeasance and no impropriety. I was written to formally, clearing me, and I feel so happy and proud.
You bear no grudge against anybody.
That I now have very clean, bill of health. Yeah. I'm one of the cleanest contesting these elections for leadership of our party. No other has gone through such public scrutiny. At least I can say that, yes, I've gone through this scrutiny and I'm the cleanest amongst all because I have been scrutinized.
Okay. When we return from this break, he will be sharing his thoughts on some of the current issues that we've been talking about. What will he do with the free SHS if he wins, ever, the presidential race? Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. This is PM Express. We are having a one-on-one conversation here with Sylvester Mensah, who is seeking to lead this country, seeking to lead the NDC into the 2020 elections. I have two more quick questions to ask you before we wrap up. My first question is, will you accept a running mate position if you should lose?
I think this is a conjecture, and it's not something I would want to respond to. I'm going for the number one. I'm going for the flag bearer of the party, and to the extent that I have all the assurances, and I'm convinced that the mood in the country is for change, and I'm going for the flag bearership position. I'm not sure I want to discuss anything other than
winning.
Yeah.
Free SHS is something you have to deal with. When you go around the country, I'm pretty sure people are talking to you about it. You're seeing the impact on lives, people going to school and paying less for it. Some happy, some say they are not. What would you do with the free SHS?
Let me start by saying that as a party, as an individual, and as a flag bearer hopeful, it has always been my prayer that any political party should succeed. Any government in power should succeed. The fact that I find myself in opposition now is not to say that I pray that a government in opposition, a government fails. No. But unfortunately, we are seeing one of the worst governments ever in the history of the Fourth Republic. We are seeing poor judgment, indiscretion, and policy credibility challenges in this President Akufo-Addo-led government. Policy credibility challenge is one of the the free SHS is one of the policies that appear to
what will you do with
suffering from credibility. You know, let me put it this way: that in thinking about free SHS, government failed to clearly understand what it wanted. It failed to understand what the end game was, and also failed to understand how to implement it. It is one thing having a good policy, and an entirely different thing implementing that good policy. We have in the UK a semblance of free education, which is limited to day schools. And all those who want to, as it were, enter boarding schools pay. And there are some scholarship schemes for those who cannot afford.
You have to wrap it up for me briefly.
And those who cannot afford and still need to go to the boarding school. In this particular instance, we didn't have a policy document to understand what is required, what is entailed. And essentially, we didn't even know that we needed infrastructure. We didn't know the number of teachers.
I'll have to say thank you very much for joining us.
We didn't know other logistics that would require.
Thank you very much. I wish you 5 seconds. What will you do with it? Will you keep it? Will you amend it? Will you review it? What word are you choosing?
We'll make it work better. Okay.
I'm grateful that you joined us. Sylvester Mensah is NDC, Flagbearer Hopeful. My name is Evan Spencer. Have a good evening.